Welcome back to WikiLert.
The Ed Sullivan Theater was buzzing that night, a familiar hum of anticipation rippling through the audience as the lights dimmed and Stephen Colbert's signature grin flashed across the stage. It was supposed to be another routine episode of The Late Show, a blend of sharp-witted satire and light-hearted celebrity banter. But no one, not the producers, not the audience, not even Colbert himself, could have predicted the firestorm that was about to erupt. Karoline Leavitt, the 27-year-old White House press secretary, a rising star in conservative circles, stepped onto the stage. Her presence alone carried a charge, her crisp white blazer cutting a stark silhouette against the studio's warm glow. She wasn't there to play the usual late-night game of quips and laughs. She came armed with something else: conviction, receipts, and a readiness to confront a media landscape she believed had long silenced voices like hers. What unfolded over the next few minutes wasn't just an interview. It was a clash of worlds, a moment that would spark a viral frenzy and leave America talking for weeks. Welcome to the breakdown of the Stephen Colbert and Karoline Leavitt interview that set the internet ablaze. From the moment Leavitt sat down, you could feel the air shift. Colbert, the master of comedic timing, opened with a playful jab at her role in the Trump administration, something about campaign strategies and the MAGA faithful. The audience chuckled, as they always do, conditioned to expect a punchline. But Leavitt didn't laugh. Her eyes locked onto Colbert's, steady and unflinching. "If you want comedy, Stephen, go ahead," she said, her voice calm but sharp as a blade. "But I came here to talk about real issues that matter to Americans." The crowd fell silent, caught off guard by the sudden pivot. You could almost hear the producers in the control room lean forward in their chairs. This wasn't the script. This wasn't the vibe. Colbert, ever the professional, tried to steer things back with a trademark quip, but Leavitt wasn't having it. She leaned forward, her words deliberate, accusing the mainstream media of bias, calling out The Late Show for what she described as a liberal echo chamber. The audience didn't know whether to clap or gasp. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others leaned in, sensing something raw and unscripted was unfolding. The tension only escalated when Colbert, perhaps sensing an opportunity to regain control, pivoted to a familiar target: former President Donald Trump. He tossed out a satirical jab about Trump's policies, expecting the usual laughs. But Leavitt didn't blink. "You can mock him all you want," she said, her voice rising with a mix of defiance and passion. "But millions of Americans saw their lives improve under his leadership. You laughed, but they're still struggling today." The studio went quiet. No punchline followed, just a heavy, electric silence. Leavitt didn't stop there. She reached beneath her chair, pulling out a stack of printed articles, headlines and transcripts from Colbert's past shows. "I came with receipts," she said, her tone unwavering. She quoted lines from his monologues, moments where he'd taken aim at conservative values, from public prayer to parents' rights. "Where's your outrage when your side censors speech or mocks faith?" she asked. The crowd was stunned. Some booed softly, others sat frozen, unsure how to process this breach of late-night decorum. Colbert, for his part, tried to keep things light. He's a seasoned host, after all, used to navigating tricky guests. But Leavitt wasn't a guest you could easily redirect. When he tried to pivot to pop culture, she brought it right back to policy, inflation, crime, border security. "People aren't laughing at their grocery bills," she said, her voice cutting through the room. "They're not entertained by fentanyl in their schools." The audience reactions were a mix of scattered boos and stunned gasps, a clear sign this wasn't just an interview anymore. It was a battle for narrative control, and Leavitt was fighting with everything she had. When Colbert challenged her directly, asking, "Do you really believe everything you're saying? Or is this just political theater?" Leavitt's response was a gut punch. "It's not theater when you're living paycheck to paycheck, Stephen. But maybe you wouldn't understand that from inside this Manhattan studio." The crowd erupted, some in cheers, others in murmurs of discomfort. The line landed like a thunderclap, and for a moment, even Colbert seemed at a loss. Behind the scenes, you could imagine the chaos. Producers scrambling, stage managers exchanging frantic glances. This wasn't the late-night fluff they'd signed up for. The segment, originally slated for 10 minutes, was reportedly cut short, with the show rushing to a commercial break as the tension reached a fever pitch. When the cameras came back on, Leavitt was gone, and Colbert was left to address the audience with a strained smile. "Sometimes," he said in a later monologue, trying to reclaim the narrative, "truth walks in wearing a smile and leaves flipping the script," but the edge in his voice was unmistakable. The Late Show had been shaken, not just by a tough guest, but by a new media reality where control isn't guaranteed and confrontation goes viral. Within minutes of the segment airing, clips were circulating on X, hashtags like #Leavitt'sColbert and #MediaMeltdown climbing the trending charts. A TikTok clip titled "Legacy of Silence" hit 3.2 million views in an hour, showing Leavitt's blistering takedown and Colbert's uncharacteristic pause. The internet was ablaze and America was divided. Conservative outlets seized on the moment, portraying Leavitt as a fearless warrior who'd stormed the liberal lion's den and emerged victorious. "She's the David to Colbert's Goliath," one pundit declared on Fox News, while social media posts hailed her as a masterclass in calling out media hypocrisy. On the other side, progressive commentators accused her of grandstanding, of hijacking a comedy show for a political ambush. This wasn't discourse, one op-ed in The Atlantic argued. It was an invasion of a space meant for satire. Cultural critics saw it differently, calling it a rare moment when two vastly different worldviews collided head-on, unscripted and unfiltered. Leavitt didn't just challenge a host, one media analyst wrote. She challenged the entire late-night format. The fallout was immediate. Leavitt became a fixture on conservative talk shows, doubling down on her narrative that the mainstream media can't handle dissent. Colbert, meanwhile, faced pressure to address the moment. In a later episode, he tried to laugh it off, but the sting was there. The Late Show, for one night, had lost its carefully curated control. What made this moment so gripping wasn't just the clash itself, but what it represented. It was a microcosm of a divided America, where every stage, be it a press briefing or a late-night set, has become a battlefield. Leavitt's supporters saw her as a truth-teller, exposing the elitism of coastal media. Colbert's fans saw her as a disruptor, turning a space for laughter into a soapbox for ideology. Both sides had a point, and that's what made it so messy, so human. The clip of Leavitt's paycheck-to-paycheck line was shared millions of times, spawning memes, t-shirts, and endless debates. Even neutral observers couldn't look away. CNN's Jake Tapper called it a masterclass in restraint on Colbert's part, while Tucker Carlson, now on Rumble, dubbed it the most perfectly executed checkmate on TV in a decade. The truth, as always, lies somewhere in the middle, a gray area where neither side fully won, but both left a mark. The ripple effects of that night are still being felt. For Leavitt, it was a defining moment, catapulting her from a relatively unknown press secretary to a national figure, a symbol of conservative defiance. For Colbert, it was a stark reminder that even a comedy show isn't immune to the cultural wars raging outside the studio. The incident raised bigger questions about the role of late-night TV in an era where every joke is scrutinized, every guest a potential landmine. Can satire survive when ideology refuses to play nice? Can a show like The Late Show remain a space for laughter when guests come armed with receipts and a mission? The answers aren't clear, but one thing is, that night at the Ed Sullivan Theater wasn't just a viral moment. It was a cultural reckoning, a glimpse into the growing chasm between America's political tribes. One stage, two worldviews, no script, and a country still grappling with what it all meant. As we reflect on this explosive encounter, it's worth asking ourselves where we stand in this fractured landscape. Are we cheering for one side, or are we just exhausted by the constant clash? The beauty and the tragedy of this moment lie in its rawness, in its refusal to be neatly packaged into a soundbite or a hashtag. It was real, it was messy, and it was undeniably human. If you found this breakdown compelling, if it made you think or feel something new, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving this video a like. It helps us keep bringing you stories that matter, stories that spark conversation. Until next time, stay curious, and let's keep talking about the moments that shape our world.